There's this idea we carry around, a quiet belief that if we just plan enough, work hard enough, worry long enough, we'll finally get a grip on life. That somehow we can outsmart the chaos, steer the storm, and figure out the way on our own. But what if I told you that the grip is the very thing keeping you stuck? What if I told you that the breakthrough isn't in the holding on, but in the letting go, surrender? That's the word we don't like to touch. It sounds too much like defeat, like giving up, and some of us have fought too long, cried too hard, survived too much to ever think about surrendering anything to anyone again. But I need you to understand this kind of surrender isn't weakness. It's not waving the white flag in failure. It's choosing to stop fighting the current and allowing yourself to be carried by a wisdom that's always been bigger than you. You see, when you try to control everything, when you try to map out every moment, anticipate every disappointment, and manage every possible pain, you exhaust your soul. You think you're protecting yourself, but really, you're only building a prison of anxiety and fear. You're locking yourself in with the very things you're trying to avoid. You become so busy trying to avoid drowning that you forget you were made to float. Allowing God to lead you every day is like learning to float again. It's uncomfortable at first. Your instincts scream to tense up, to paddle, to stay in control. But there's a moment when you finally let go, when the water holds you and you realize it was never trying to hurt you. It was only asking you to trust. And I know trust doesn't come easy, especially when life has given you every reason not to. Some of us have been betrayed, abandoned, disappointed again and again, so we keep God at arm's length. We love Him, but only from a distance. We pray, but we don't fully release. We worship, but we don't fully trust. And yet, every day He's calling us to loosen our grip, to step out of our carefully constructed comfort zones, and to walk with Him in uncertainty, because that's where the miracles happen. Letting God lead means waking up and saying, I don't have to have the answers today. I don't have to be perfect today. I don't have to carry it all today. It means showing up with open hands, not clenched fists. It means believing that the one who breathed life into you knows how to guide that life better than your fears ever could. Now listen, this isn't some passive, checked-out existence. This isn't about doing nothing and expecting everything to fall into place. This is about inner posture. It's about moving with intention while anchored in trust. It's about releasing the urge to control outcomes and embracing the peace that comes with divine direction. When you surrender to that flow, you begin to see how even the detours were part of the design. You look back and realize that what you thought was a breakdown was actually a breakthrough in disguise. That what you thought was a delay was actually divine timing. That what you thought was rejection was actually redirection. Because God doesn't just lead you into comfort, He leads you into transformation. And the thing about transformation is, it's messy. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like you're being unraveled, but that's not the end of you, that's the beginning. Because in the unraveling, God is doing a deeper work. He's tearing down what was never meant to last, so He can build something you never thought possible. You can't hear His voice when you're shouting over it with your plans. You can't feel His peace when you're too busy manufacturing your own. You can't follow His lead when you're obsessed with making your own way. So maybe today, just maybe, it's time to stop striving and start surrendering. Not because you're giving up, but because you're finally ready to move forward. Letting God lead isn't the easy road. It's the real one, and if you have the courage to take it, you'll discover that even in the unknown, even in the valley, even in the waiting, He's already gone ahead of you. He's not asking you to figure it all out. He's asking you to follow. We've been taught to silence the storm inside us, to bury the sadness, to deny the anger, to ignore the anxiety. We were raised on phrases like stay strong, keep your head up, don't let them see you sweat. And so we learn early how to dress our wounds in pretty smiles and pretend we're okay, even when something inside us is breaking. But here's the truth: God can't heal what you keep hiding. He can't transform what you keep denying. And He didn't create you to be numb. Negative feelings aren't the enemy. They're messengers, carriers of truth. Proof that you're still alive, still feeling, still connected to the deep, beautiful, complicated layers of your humanity. God didn't ask you to be a robot. He didn't ask you to avoid emotion. He asked you to bring it to Him. All of it. Not just the praise, not just the gratitude, not just the carefully edited parts of you, but the grief, the frustration, the doubt, the questions. He wants the raw, unfiltered version of you. See, the problem isn't the feelings, it's what we do with them. We suppress them, we spiritualize them, we tell ourselves, if I really had faith, I wouldn't feel this way. But that's not faith. That's shame dressed up in religion. Faith doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you trust God enough to face the fear. Faith doesn't mean you're never anxious. It means you invite God into the anxiety. Faith doesn't mean you're always happy. It means you're anchored even when you're not. You have to stop judging yourself for being human. Stop rebuking your sadness like it's a sin. Stop thinking your anger makes you less spiritual. Feelings are not final destinations. They're signals, indicators that something inside needs attention, not condemnation. You can feel what you feel and still walk with God. You can cry and still be called. You can wrestle and still be righteous. And here's what I need you to understand. When you allow God to lead you through your negative emotions instead of trying to lead yourself out of them, you begin to see the purpose in the pain. You begin to realize that sadness doesn't mean you're stuck. It means something matters. That anger doesn't mean you're out of control. It means something crossed a line. That fear doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're stepping into something unfamiliar. We serve a God who felt deeply, who wept, who got angry, who groaned in the garden before the cross. So why do we think our emotions disqualify us when they mirror the very God who made us? When Jesus knelt in that garden, overwhelmed and sweating drops of blood, He didn't pretend, He didn't hide it. He brought it all before the Father and said, if there's another way. And yet, even in the emotion, even in the heaviness, He surrendered. Not my will, but yours. That is the path through negative emotions, not denial, not shame, but surrender. Not the kind that says, I shouldn't feel this, but the kind that says, even in this, I'll trust you. Sometimes God doesn't take the feeling away right away because He's using it to reveal something. That pain might be uncovering a belief you didn't know you carried. That sadness might be pointing to a place you stopped hoping. That anxiety might be calling your attention to something that needs to change. He doesn't waste anything, not even your tears. And if you let Him, He'll lead you right through the emotion and into healing. But you've got to stop pretending, stop numbing, stop performing. Healing can't happen in pretense. You've got to open your mouth and say, God, this is where I am. This is what I feel. This is what I don't understand, and I'm trusting you to meet me here. You don't have to clean yourself up emotionally before God can work. In fact, it's the mess that makes room for the miracle. And when you allow yourself to really feel, you make space for God to fill. That's where the shift begins. Not in resisting your emotions, but in resting within them long enough for God to speak. You were never meant to carry those feelings alone. That's why His Spirit is called the Comforter. That's why His presence brings peace. Not because He erases the emotion, but because He walks with you through it. So let yourself feel, let yourself cry, let yourself ask questions, let yourself be human, and then let God lead you through. You know what keeps a lot of us stuck. It's not the pain, it's not the fear, it's not even the people who walked away. It's the illusion of control. The belief that if we just try hard enough, if we get it all right, we can keep our hearts from breaking, our plans from falling apart, our lives from detouring into chaos. We hold on so tightly to what we think should be, and then we wonder why we're constantly tired, constantly anxious, constantly disappointed. Control is seductive. It makes us feel safe. It gives us the illusion of stability in an unpredictable world. But let's be honest, how much have you really been able to control? You couldn't control who left. You couldn't control the diagnosis. You couldn't control the layoff, the betrayal, the timing, the closed doors. No matter how much you planned, no matter how much you tried to protect yourself, life still happened. And it always will. We think control gives us peace, but really it creates pressure. Because when you're trying to be the planner, the protector, the provider, the problem solver, all at the same time you're stepping into a role that was never yours to fill. You weren't designed to carry all that weight. That's why your shoulders feel heavy. That's why your heart feels tired. You're trying to be your own God in a world that was never yours to govern. And here's the thing, God will let you try. He'll let you exhaust yourself. He'll let you chase perfection. He'll let you orchestrate and calculate and strategize until you finally realize it was never supposed to be this hard. Not because life is easy, but because grace was meant to carry what your strength cannot. There's a kind of freedom that only comes when you release the need to control. When you finally open your hands and say, God, I don't know what's next, but I trust that you do. When you stop rehearsing every worst case scenario and start resting in the truth that even if the worst happens, God will still be enough. Some of us have made an idol out of certainty. We don't just want a plan, we want a guarantee. We want God to give us step-by-step instructions with a preview of the outcome before we move. But that's not faith, that's comfort, and God is more committed to growing you than keeping you comfortable. So sometimes He'll allow your plans to fall apart just to show you He's still holding your future together. When you're obsessed with control, you stop listening, you stop trusting, you start forcing things that were never meant to fit, and you delay blessings trying to manipulate outcomes. But when you let go, when you truly let go, you begin to see that God has always had a better plan, not always an easier one, but a deeper one. A plan that heals while it builds, a plan that breaks in order to bless. And don't get me wrong, letting go is not easy. It's not natural because when life has shaken you, when trust has been broken, your instinct is to hold tighter, to try harder, to shut down, but you can't move forward holding on to fear. You can't step into peace while gripping control. You can't experience freedom when you're still trying to steer every step. So maybe today is the day you stop asking, how can I fix it? And start asking, what is God trying to show me? Maybe the reason it's not working isn't because you're doing it wrong, but because you're doing it alone. Maybe God is waiting for you to drop the blueprint so He can reveal the masterpiece. This is the beautiful irony of faith. The less you try to control, the more you begin to see divine order. You start noticing the grace in the delay, the wisdom in the detour, the protection in the closed door. You realize that surrender didn't shrink your life, it expanded it. That what you feared losing was never meant to define you in the first place. That peace doesn't come from knowing every step. It comes from knowing the one who walks with you. And so, if you're tired, really tired, not just in your body, but in your soul, maybe it's time to lay it down. Lay down the pressure, lay down the striving, lay down the illusion that you're supposed to have it all figured out by now. You're not. You're supposed to follow. You're supposed to trust. You're supposed to rest, because God is not asking you to control the outcome. He's asking you to surrender the process. You ever notice how loud life can get? I'm not just talking about the noise around you, the notifications, the responsibilities, the people, the pressure. I'm talking about the noise within you, that running commentary in your mind, that inner voice that keeps replaying the past and rehearsing the worst. That anxiety that sneaks in when things get quiet. That fear that fills the silence because you've never known what it means to rest. We're always running, always doing, always reaching, but in all that movement we've forgotten how to be still. And not just still physically, still spiritually, emotionally, mentally. We've forgotten what it feels like to just be. To exist without performing, to breathe without proving, to sit in silence and still feel whole. But I came to tell you, stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is presence. Stillness is where God meets you, not because he wasn't there before, but because you finally stopped moving long enough to notice him. He's always been there, but we've been too distracted, too busy trying to fix things, too busy trying to be strong, too busy trying to outrun the very pain God is calling us to heal from. You don't need more noise, you need clarity. You don't need more movement, you need alignment. You don't need more answers. You need awareness, and all of that is found in stillness. See, when you pause, when you breathe, when you choose to get quiet, you start hearing things differently. Not just your own thoughts, but the whisper behind them, the peace beneath them, the presence that surrounds them. That's God. That's the gentle nudge saying, I'm here, not in the thunder, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the still, small voice. And the problem isn't that God stopped speaking. The problem is that we stopped listening. We've been tuning into fear, tuning into shame, tuning into the expectations of everyone around us. But God's voice won't fight for volume. He's not loud because he doesn't need to be. When someone you love whispers, you lean in closer. God is asking you to lean in, and I get it. Stillness can be uncomfortable, especially if you've spent years trying to distract yourself from the hurt, from the questions, from the things you haven't made peace with yet. Stillness will make you face what you've been avoiding. It will bring your buried emotions to the surface. But that's where healing starts, not in the hiding but in the facing, not in the noise but in the quiet. You've been begging God for answers, for breakthrough, for direction. But have you made space to hear him? Or are you trying to shout over his silence? Sometimes the answer is in the waiting. Sometimes the miracle is in the pause. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not because you're giving up, but because you're giving it over. Stillness is not inaction, it's intention. It's saying, God, I'm not going to move ahead of you. I'm not going to force what you didn't send. I'm not going to fill the space you're asking me to sit in. It's trust. It's obedience. It's worship. And let me tell you, when you learn how to be still, you start seeing everything differently. You start noticing God in the ordinary. You start sensing peace in places where chaos used to live. You start hearing your own voice again, not the one that's been shaped by trauma, but the one that was formed in truth. Stillness will remind you of who you are. Stillness will teach you how to stop striving. Stillness will reconnect you to your source. And when you live from that place, when you carry stillness into the noise, you stop being shaken by every storm. You stop reacting to everything that tries to pull you off course. You become anchored. This is why God keeps pulling you aside. This is why things are slowing down. This is why some doors didn't open. He's not punishing you. He's protecting your peace. He's creating a sacred space where he can pour into you again. Because what's coming next will require a deeper level of alignment, and you can't carry noise into your next season. So if the world is loud right now, if your heart is overwhelmed, if your thoughts are racing, if you feel like you've lost your center, it might be time to get still. Time to stop looking for confirmation in the chaos. Time to tune out the voices and tune into his. Time to breathe. time to listen, time to remember that the presence of God has never been far. It's just waiting in the silence, ready for you to come home. Because stillness is not where God hides from you, it's where He meets you.